The last time I saw my husband and my best friend together, they were smiling at me from the altar. It turns out their smiles were for each other. My name is Chloe, I'm 28 years old, and my wedding day was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Instead, it was the day I discovered the two people I trusted most in the world had betrayed me in the worst way possible. Mark, my fiancé, and Sarah, my maid of honor and best friend since kindergarten. We were the inseparable trio. I thought their bond was a sign of a perfect blended family. I was so wrong. But everything changed during the father-daughter dance. I met Mark in my final year of university. He was charming, a rising star at an architecture firm, with a smile that could disarm anyone. He pursued me relentlessly, with grand romantic gestures and promises of a future that sounded like a fairy tale. Sarah, who had been by my side through every bad date and heartbreak, was his biggest cheerleader. "He's the one, Chloe," she'd tell me. "I've never seen you this happy." She was right. I was blissfully happy. He proposed a year later on a trip to Paris that he and Sarah had secretly planned for me. It was perfect. Of course, I asked Sarah to be my maid of honor. Who else would it be? Looking back, the signs were all there. The way they'd finish each other's sentences, their inside jokes that I was never a part of, the long talks they'd have when they thought I wasn't listening. I just thought they were building a great friendship. I was a fool for encouraging it. The wedding planning was a whirlwind of stress and excitement. Sarah was involved in every single detail, from tasting cakes to choosing my dress. There was a time, about 2 months before the wedding, when I found them having a hushed, intense conversation in the kitchen. When I walked in, they jumped apart. "Just finalizing a surprise for your bachelorette party," Sarah said, winking. Mark just nodded, avoiding my eyes. A knot formed in my stomach, a strange, cold feeling of dread. But I pushed it down. This was Sarah, my rock. This was Mark, the love of my life. I told myself I was just being a paranoid bride. I should have listened to my gut. The wedding day was a beautiful, sunny day in May. Everything was perfect. The venue, the flowers, the dress. I felt like a princess. Walking down the aisle, I saw Mark waiting for me, looking impossibly handsome. Next to him stood Sarah, beaming in her lavender dress. I remember thinking how lucky I was to have them both. The ceremony was a blur of happy tears and vows I meant with every fiber of my being. We were pronounced husband and wife, and the room erupted in cheers. The reception started, filled with laughter, toasts, and dancing. Then came the father-daughter dance. As my dad spun me around the dance floor, I looked over his shoulder, scanning the crowd for my new husband. I couldn't find him. Or Sarah. My dad must have felt me tense up. "Everything okay, sweetie?" he asked. "Just looking for Mark," I replied, trying to keep my voice light. And that's when things got worse. The song ended, and a small panic began to set in. It was time for the cake cutting, but the groom and maid of honor were still missing. My wedding planner, a stern woman named Helen, was starting to look stressed. "I'll go find them," I said, forcing a smile. I checked the restrooms, the bar, the patio. Nothing. A guest, my cousin Lucy, pulled me aside. "Chloe, I don't want to worry you," she started, her eyes wide with unease. "But I saw Mark and Sarah heading towards the staff corridors about 15 minutes ago. They looked weird." My heart started pounding against my ribs. Staff corridors? Why would they go there? I thanked Lucy and made my way towards the back of the venue, my beautiful white dress trailing behind me. My hands were shaking. I told myself there was a perfectly logical explanation. Maybe Sarah felt sick. Maybe Mark was helping her, but I wasn't ready for what I discovered next. I found a door marked staff only and pushed it open. It led to a long, dimly lit hallway. At the far end, another door was slightly ajar, and I could hear voices, whispers. I crept closer, my satin shoes making no sound on the tiled floor. My stomach dropped as I recognized the voices. It was them. "We can't keep doing this, Mark." Sarah's voice was a strained whisper. "She just married you." My blood ran cold. I pressed my ear against the cool wood of the door. "I know." Mark's voice was low and urgent. "But seeing you in that dress, standing up there, it killed me. I should be marrying you, Sarah. It's always been you. I couldn't breathe. It felt like the world had tilted on its axis. I heard a soft rustling sound, then a sigh. I didn't need to see it to know what was happening. Pushing the door open with more force than I intended, I saw them. He had her pressed against the wall, his hands tangled in her hair, her lavender dress hiked up her thighs. They sprang apart, their faces a mask of pure shock and guilt. The look in their eyes. It wasn't just panic. It was the look of two people who had been caught, not the look of two people who were sorry. My world shattered in that moment. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. A strange, icy calm washed over me. I just stared at them, the image burning itself into my memory forever. The smeared lipstick, the disheveled hair, the sheer panic on their faces. "Get out," I said, my voice barely a whisper, but it cut through the silence like a knife. Sarah started sobbing, stammering apologies that meant nothing. Mark just stood there, looking at me as if I were a stranger. I turned without another word, walked back into the reception hall, straight to the DJ booth. I took the microphone. "Attention, everyone," I announced, my voice shaking but clear. The room went silent. "I'm afraid there's been a change of plans. The wedding is over." I looked directly at my parents, my eyes finally filling with tears. "My husband has been sleeping with my maid of honor." A collective gasp filled the room. I dropped the microphone and walked out of my own wedding, leaving behind the wreckage of my life. The days that followed were a blur of pain. I stayed at my parents' house, refusing to answer the hundreds of calls and texts from Mark and Sarah. My family formed a protective wall around me. The annulment was surprisingly quick. He didn't fight it. What could he say? The humiliation was public, absolute. The hardest part wasn't losing him. It was losing her. 30 years of friendship, gone. Thrown away in a dingy hallway for a man who belonged to me. I had to make the hardest decision of my life. To cut them both out completely. To erase them as if they never existed. It's been 6 months now. I sold the dress, returned the gifts, and started seeing a therapist. Some days are harder than others. Sometimes I'll see a lavender dress in a shop window or hear our wedding song on the radio, and it feels like a punch to the gut. I found out through a mutual friend that Mark and Sarah are together now, living in another city. A part of me hopes they are miserable, but another smaller part of me is just tired of hating them. Their betrayal doesn't define me. My healing is my own. I've learned that sometimes the people you take a bullet for are the ones behind the trigger. Trust is a fragile thing, and once it's broken, it can never be truly pieced back together. My wedding day wasn't an ending. It was a brutal, painful, but necessary beginning. It was the day I stopped being a fool for a fairy tale and started fighting for myself. You can't control the betrayals of others, but you can control how you rise from the ashes.